Welcome to Till All Are Done, the show where we're showcasing one toy for every character in the Transformers universe. We are working through the Season 1 cast of G1 characters, and if you want to start from the very beginning, check out the playlist in the description or click the card in the corner. But the best way to stay tuned for new episodes is to subscribe and see which figures I'm going to showcase next. Cliffjumper is very often assigned to Bumblebee repaint duty, but in the G1 cartoon he's very much his own scrappy, hot-headed character. This time, he did get his shine, sort of, in the version I want to talk about in this episode. Cliffjumper made an immediate impact in Transformers Prime in the very first episode, and he is even voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Wow. If you smell what the Cliff is cooking. And then he dies in the first episode. It's not spoilers because you didn't even get a chance to spoil anything. I guess voice acting costs money? He said 3 words and we already used up half the show's budget. Kill him off. But even with dying in the first episode, he must have made a big impact because this iteration of the character is a fan favorite with the badass muscle car alt mode and his great looking design that also makes him my very personal favorite Cliffjumper. So now we got a surprise toy included in a Transformers Legacy 4-pack as a retool of another toy, and it piques my interest. So why not? Let's spotlight the Legacy vs 4-pack Prime Universe Deluxe Class Cliffjumper and see if it's worth collecting or not.
The Transformers!
It's interesting to see how Hasbro and Takara can use a mold made for a completely different character from a completely different cartoon or comic, retool it into another character, and it comes out pretty good. This Cliffjumper is a retool of the Legacy United Rescue Bots universe Chase, and I think the retooling works for the most part. I have a few gripes and 2 major problems, but they were clever when they decided to choose this mold and turn it into this specific character. I think the size and proportions of the retool are pretty great. It's not completely show accurate, but the original toys released in the Prime toy line weren't either. Not even the first edition Prime Cliff was totally perfect. They could have done a bit more paint-wise here to make it similar to the on-screen character like in the hips. It got left black and they could have been painted red to match, but they captured the essence pretty well. The new retooled head certainly nails it with the horns and the face sunk into the helmet. The chest is pretty accurate to the past toys, and maybe that's the part they saw on Chase and figured, maybe this retool might work out. I mean, would have been nice if it was made as a Prime Cliffjumper with its own mold, just for him and it's super show accurate. Sure, this version of the character is a bit on the obscure or fan favorite side, but they could have still done it. The chances though of Hasbro and Takara giving him his own mold are slim, and it's probably better to look at third-party offerings where those companies don't have so many restraints and you can hopefully get the quality level you're looking for. Like for example, you can see some budget crunch with the uneven quality of plastic used. Some parts are nice, solid red plastic, while some of them are this softer plastic that makes the color of red lighter, and you can feel it's cheaper. I don't have Chase to compare the quality of his plastics throughout, but I bet this is a cost-cutting measure because they could have gotten away with it since he's part of a multi-pack. I definitely think Squeeze Play is the Chase piece of the set, and this Prime Cliff is a second-class citizen. But otherwise, no, I don't have a problem with this figure being a retool of another mold, but I do have a problem when it inherits the problems of the original figure. Like, I really don't like the way these shoulders work on this toy, and they are the biggest hang-up I have with this thing. Particularly, the joints are used for transformation, and they seem like they are supposed to clip to the top of the torso, but they just don't. No matter how I try, they do not want to cooperate. Now, if you're not going to touch this thing at all, then it's fine, but if you want to play with it, it's a toy after all. Enjoy these noodly arms bouncing up and down. I also wish the shoulders were much bigger to match the show model, but that's not as huge an issue compared to the weird shoulder joint design. The other big issue is the quote-unquote wings that are really just alt mode kibble. They are just hanging out, getting in the way of the articulation, which we already struggle with these damn shoulders. It's super annoying, and I thought I was mistransforming the figure at first. The way they should have done this is that the wings fold back underneath the body, tucking underneath the shoulder joints, and that would have kept everything completely locked in tight and kibble free. Sadly, that's not what happened, and we are left to deal with these baffling design choices. On a more positive note, if you want to use that triple barrel blaster from the Prime cartoon, you can. You can combine the floodlight, the megaphone with the main part of the weapon to make the combination. The weapons are clearly and blatantly just carried over from Chase, recolored in transparent black, but they work for this gun. I wish they had a bit of silver added to them, but that's just a nitpick. The full weaponry is made up of 5 parts, all Chase carryovers, with 2 of the barrel parts, 2 claws, and the main body part, and they make a different combination of weapons by pegging into different parts. The hook shot you can make is more of a Chase weapon, but I appreciate them looking out for the playability factor. So a bit of a mixed bag with the robot mode overall, with a few things that really sour my experience with this toy. Hopefully the rest comes together. For articulation, those shoulders come back to bite us, but otherwise it lives up to the modern figure articulation standards set when we got the War for Cybertron trilogy. Head is on a ball joint, so 360 rotation with pretty good forward and back nodding, plus a teeny bit of side tilt, enough to give him some attitude. And then, oh boy, you knew this was coming. Shoulders are attached by a hinged mushroom peg that is attached to this weird transformation joint we talked about earlier. It's genuinely annoying unless you plan on putting it on the shelf and never touching it again. With the shoulders in the proper position, they would rotate 360 degrees if it wasn't for these little wings being in the way. How about outwards then? Well, you only get 45 degrees thanks to the way the shoulders are sculpted. Now you can get some unnatural articulation by taking advantage of the transformation joint and get the shoulders in some weird places. I would rather have it traditional shoulders at the end of the day, but I'm trying to find the bright side here. Aside from that absolute mess, you have 360 bicep swivel, 90 degree elbows, and some inward wrist articulation. Legs are hinged on, so that means you can do pretty much the splits 90 degrees outwards, and he can kick above his head, which is actually pretty awesome. However, rotating straight backwards, he does run into the piece of the alt mode hanging out of his shiny metal ass. You do need to extend the leg out a bit, just enough to clear the piece, and then Cliff can get into soccer kick position at a more sharper angle. You get 360 waist rotation, and it's joined on with a mushroom peg plus 360 thigh swivel, 90 degree knees, and a bit of forward tilt. Then you have more than 90 degrees of ankle tilt outwards. For a bit of fun, you can make this toy taller by unpegging the leg assembly, and if you position him just right, you can get Cliff to stand tall like this. As if this figure wasn't strange enough, eh? I couldn't think of it for the Mirage episode, but this type of transformation with spine formers, as I like to call them, the robot mode just splays out as far as you can stretch him, and then we're gonna collapse him into the alt mode, tabbing in all the pieces in. Legs need to be done first, and I'd say the trickiest part of the transformation. Once you know how all the pieces articulate though, you can do it over and over again in your sleep. You'll recreate the whole front section in one piece, and then you have to worry about the back section. You don't have to do much with the arms other than using that transformation shoulder joint to fold them down. Now there are transparent plastic tabs on the windshield, but don't get sweaty yet. They don't really tab in per se, they just help keep everything aligned, especially the doors, and there's no added pressure required on them, although I guess you could still break them if you're not careful, but all of the tightness of the assembly comes from solid plastic tabs instead. So relax. Once you have the two halves ready, you just have to reunite them by folding at the leg joints. Then when you have everything tabbed and aligned, those wings on the robot mode actually become a necessary evil, as they do a good job keeping the back half of the car tabbed nice and tight together. And with that last step, our buddy Cliff is showing us some muscle. Now we are in alt mode, and I think it looks pretty good. They did enough to differentiate from Chase the cop car that if you don't know it was a retool, you would probably think this was meant to be molded as a muscle car, but I don't get a 1970s Barracuda Challenger vibe, which is the original Prime Cliffjumper design is based on. Instead, it comes off more like a late 2000s Revival Charger or newer Mustang, which is fine if you want a more modernized look for Prime Cliff. But if you're a purist about this or a car fanatic, well, it's the wrong model of car. So treating it as a modernized muscle car, I like the front grille and bumper of the vehicle with the double round headlights, and of course the iconic horns on top, good stuff. These horns really are the cherry on top of the sundae. While it's not the right type of car, they have all the right pieces in the right spots. Take a look at the original alt mode and then look at the legacy version. You have the exhaust pipes in the right spot plus the horns. There's the right amount of attention to detail for this mode, and it hasn't been designed haphazardly or wrong. One thing I will say though is they put so much detailing and sculpting into this alt mode, which is good, but it's lost on this simple paint deco. Definitely could have used some black or silver to accent some of the sculpting work here, and I don't think it would have taken away anything. The back is definitely modern, Mustang inspired, but while you get the silver, I wish there was again some more color added to spruce it up a bit. I'm always a little disappointed when the lights don't get painted, and that's really prevalent in the modern era of toys. Otherwise, the paint scheme is pretty nice and they did a good job color matching the plastics, including the painted black transparent plastic they used for the windshield. It's nice to have an episode or two where I don't have to complain about transparent plastic problems. Weapon storage with so many pieces is obviously going to be a little tricky, but there are portholes all over the sides of the alt mode so you can place the pieces wherever you like. I prefer the ones on the back of the bumper, and then there's a porthole on the back portion of the vehicle where you can place the hook shot and it stores there nicely. Now if you look at the bottom of the alt mode, you will see the handholds are exposed, so I think the best place for the floodlight and megaphone is there. It hides them nicely, but don't go wheeling around the toy or you will scrape them along the surface. They don't quite clear the height of the wheels, just barely don't. By the way, the pegged wheels, not ideal, but he rolls pretty fine. Pinned is always going to be better. Unfortunately, none of the versions of Prime Cliffjumper ever really nailed it 100%, but I feel this one doesn't really break that trend, maybe being the worst. Sorry to say. It's not the fact that it's not its own mold that's the problem, although some people might argue otherwise. No, it's that it carried over problems from the original mold it's borrowing, and there's not enough retooling done to make it better. It also doesn't help that this figure wasn't released in the waves proper in Legacy and relocated to a 4-pack, so Hasbro is giving us some second class afterthought energy. Again, if the leaks are true, it might be released by itself in Age of the Primes. We'll see. I don't want to be completely negative though, as there's some good aspects of the toy. I appreciate the cleverness especially, but I think Legacy United Prime Cliffjumper is just the 2 out of 5 stars. It's just fine. I checked to see if that's kind of whacking off base, but the toy is actually kind of divisive amongst fans. We can probably do better for Prime Cliffjumper. You know what? I take back what I said earlier. I hope Hasbro and Takara take a crack at the character creating his own mold. Let's give it the college try. You can retool the mold into a bunch of other toys if that's the problem. There's tons of potential with muscle car alt modes. Heck, do it in reverse. Make Bumblebee the repaint this time. I'm sick of that guy getting the limelight. Another Autobot down and still a whole bunch to go. We have Minibots, Countach's, a Datsun brother, but our next spotlight goes to a tough and seasoned fighter. I bet you want to know who that might be? Well, stick around then. Hit subscribe and maybe let me know how you're enjoying the journey so far with a comment. But always, thanks for spending some of your valuable time here on the JR Magnus channel, and peace out.